The ventilation shaft was barely wide enough for her shoulders. But Naya Voss had learned to make herself small. Years of hiding, of becoming invisible, had taught her body to fold into spaces that shouldn't accommodate a living being. She pressed herself against the cold metal, watching through the grate as Marcus Reed entered his quarters on Station Kepler 7. He moved with the casual confidence of someone who believed himself safe, dropping his security jacket onto a chair and running, his fingers through dark hair still damp with perspiration from his shift. Naya's enhanced vision caught the micro-expressions of fatigue around his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands that spoke of too much caffeine and too little sleep. For 3 months, she had watched him, learned his routines, his habits, his vulnerabilities. And for 3 months, she had kept him alive. The neural dampening collar round her neck pulsed with a dull ache, suppressing the telepathic abilities that would have made her task easier. But the collar was necessary camouflage, marking her as one of the processed aliens, refugees who had undergone neurological modification to work safely among humans. The irony was bitter. She wore the symbol of her oppression to protect the man who represented everything her people had lost. Marcus moved to his personal terminal, fingers dancing across the holographic interface as he reviewed the day's security reports. He paused at one entry, frowning, and Naya knew he had found the anomaly she had been forced to create. The missing surveillance footage from Corridor 7G, the altered duty roster that had placed him away from the observation deck during the shift change, small discrepancies that kept him clear of the sniper's sight line. A soft chime echoed through the ventilation system. Someone was at Marcus's door. Naya shifted silently, angling herself for a better view as Marcus activated the door controls. The visitor was Lieutenant Park from Communications, a thin man with nervous eyes who had been acting strangely for the past week. Naya's modified physiology detected the accelerated heart rate, the slight tremor, the chemical signature of fear-induced adrenaline. Marcus, Park said, stepping into the room. "We need to talk." "About what?" Marcus gestured to a chair, but Park remained standing, one hand hovering near his sidearm. "About the Zephyrian problem." The words hit Naya like a physical blow. Her people, the Zephyrians, had been systematically hunted after their homeworlds. Destruction. Those who survived lived in hiding, their natural telepathic abilities making them valuable as slaves or dangerous as free beings. The neural collars were supposed to be humane, a way to integrate refugees into human society. In reality, they were electronic leashes. "What problem?" Marcus asked, but his posture had shifted, becoming more alert. Park's hand moved to his weapon. "The one that's been watching you, following you. That maintenance tech with the collar, she's not what she seems." Naya's blood turned to ice. Somehow, despite all her precautions, she had been discovered. Her mind raced through possibilities, escape routes, contingencies she had hoped never to use. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Marcus said carefully. "Don't play dumb. I've seen the reports. Strange malfunctions whenever you're in danger. Security systems failing at convenient moments. Someone's been protecting you. And I think I know why." Park drew his weapon, the energy cell humming to life. "The Zephyrian resistance has been placing agents on stations like this, telepaths, who can manipulate technology, influence minds. She's here to get close to you, to use you." The accusation was both wrong and terrifyingly right. Naya wasn't resistance. There was no organized resistance left. She was simply a survivor, driven by reasons she couldn't fully explain to herself. But Park's conclusion would lead to the same result: her capture, interrogation, and eventual execution. Marcus raised his hands slowly. "Even if that were true, why bring it to me like this? Why not go through proper channels?" "Because I'm not sure who else might be compromised." Park's voice carried the edge of paranoia. "The resistance is clever. They could have plants throughout the command structure." Naya made her decision. The grate gave way under her enhanced strength with barely a whisper of sound. She dropped into the room behind Park, moving with the fluid grace her people were known for. Before either man could react, her hand was on Park's wrist, pressure points disrupted, the weapon clattering to the floor. "Don't," she said quietly, her voice carrying the slight harmonic distortion common to her species. There's no need for violence. Marcus stared at her, taking in the subtle differences her maintenance coveralls had concealed. The slightly luminescent blue tinge to her pale skin, the enlarged eyes that reflected light like a cat's, the delicate bone structure that marked her as definitely non-human despite her collar. He began. Zephyrian, she confirmed, keeping her grip on Park's wrist as the man struggled weakly against her hold. But not what he thinks I am. Then what are you? Marcus asked, his hand moving instinctively toward his own weapon before stopping. Naya met his eyes, seeing confusion and curiosity where she had expected fear or revulsion. I'm the person who has been keeping you alive for the past 3 months. The question is, do you want to know why? Park made another attempt to break free, and Naya tightened her grip just enough to discourage further movement. The neural collar sent a spike of pain through her skull, responding to her elevated stress levels by increasing its suppression field. The assassins, Marcus said slowly, pieces falling into place, the equipment failures, the schedule changes. That was you. Someone wants you dead, Naya confirmed. Someone with resources and patience. They've made 4 attempts, each more sophisticated than the last. Park here was going to be the 5th. That's impossible, Park gasped. I'm trying to protect him from you, are you? Naya tilted her head, studying the lieutenant with senses that penetrated beyond the visible spectrum. Then explain the neural disruptor in your left pocket. The one calibrated specifically to override security collars like mine. Marcus's expression darkened. Park, the lieutenant's face crumbled, fear replacing bravado. They have my family, my wife, my daughter. They said if I didn't eliminate the Zephyrian agent and make it look like an accident. Who? Marcus demanded. I don't know. Communications came through encrypted channels. Credits appeared in my account. I just followed orders. Naya released Park's wrist, stepping back but remaining ready to intervene if necessary. The same people who want Marcus dead are using you. Once you've served your purpose, your family will be killed anyway. That's how these operations work. The 3 of them stood in tense silence, the weight of revelation settling between them. Finally, Marcus spoke. Why? He asked, looking directly at Naya. Why protect me? You don't know me. I'm human security on a station that processes your people like cargo. Naya touched the collar round her neck, feeling the constant low-grade pain that reminded her of her captivity. Because 7 years ago, you were a junior officer on the refugee transport sanctuary. You were ordered to separate families during processing, to send the children to one facility and the adults to another. Do you remember what you did? Marcus frowned, searching his memory. I couldn't do it. I falsified the paperwork, kept families together. I thought no one noticed. Someone noticed, Naya said softly. A little girl named Thea Voss. She would have been sent to a work camp, separated from her mother forever. Instead, she stayed with her family long enough to say goodbye before they died in the transport crash 6 months later. Understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes. Thea Voss, your sister, my daughter. The words came out as barely a whisper. I gave birth to her in a refugee camp. Watched her grow up thinking every day might be our last. When they put us on that transport, I thought we were finally safe. Your small act of defiance gave me 6 more months with her. 6 months of bedtime stories and laughter and hope. Tears traced silver paths down her luminescent cheeks. She died believing in human kindness because of what you did. When I saw you recognized your face from that day, I couldn't let them kill you. Not when you had shown mercy to my child. Marcus stepped closer, his expression soft with understanding and something deeper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss. Don't be sorry, Naya said, looking up at him with eyes that held starlight. Be worthy of her memory. Be worthy of the man who chose compassion over orders. Park cleared his throat, breaking the moment. What happens now? They'll know I failed. They'll come for all of us. Naya turned to study him, her enhanced senses reading the genuine fear and regret in his posture. Now we find out who wants Marcus dead and why. And we make sure your family lives to see another day. She looked back at Marcus, seeing something new in his expression, not just gratitude, but recognition of her as a person rather than an alien curiosity. If you'll have me, she said, I'd like to stop hiding in the shadows, Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his tired features into something warm and inviting. I think I'd like that too. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small dramas of mortal beings. But in that cramped station quarters, something new was beginning, a connection that transcended species. Built on shared loss and unexpected hope, the collar round Naya's neck pulsed once more, but this time she barely felt it. The cantina on Meridian Port never truly slept, even in the deepest hours of the station's artificial night cycle. Beings from a dozen different worlds gathered in its smoky confines to conduct business that thrived in shadows. Kira Thorne sat in the furthest corner booth, her hood pulled low to conceal the telltale features that marked her as neither fully human nor fully Nexari. Her fingers traced the rim of her untouched drink, watching the amber liquid catch the flickering light from the holographic advertisements that painted the walls in garish colors. She had been waiting for 3 hours, but patience was one of the few gifts her mixed heritage had given her. That, and the ability to see in the dark like her Nexari parent, while thinking with the strategic cunning her human side had inherited. The man she was waiting for entered with the casual swagger of someone who owned whatever space he occupied. Jackson Cross, smuggler, pilot, and according to her sources, the only human captain who regularly ran supplies to the outer colonies where beings like herself scraped out their existence. He was younger than she had expected, perhaps 35 standard years, with sandy brown hair and eyes that held the kind of weariness that came from seeing too much of the galaxy's uglier corners. Kira raised one hand slightly, the agreed-upon signal, and watched as Jackson's gaze found her in the dim corner. He approached cautiously, his hand resting near the blaster at his hip. Smart man. In his line of work, paranoia was a survival trait. "You're the one who sent the message," he said, sliding into the booth across from her but leaving enough space to move quickly if needed. "Depends on what message you're referring to," Kira replied, her voice carrying the melodic undertones that marked her Nexari blood. "I've sent quite a few recently." Jackson studied her face, and she saw the moment recognition flickered in his expression. His hand moved closer to his weapon. "You're one of them," he said quietly. "Mixed blood." "Half and half," Kira confirmed, pushing back her hood to reveal features that belonged fully to neither species. Her hair was the silver white of the Nexari, but her eyes were human brown. Her bone structure was delicate like her alien parent, but her skin held the warmth of human genetics. "The word you're looking for is hybrid, though most people prefer abomination." "What do you want?" Jackson's tone remained neutral, but she could see tension in the set of his shoulders. "I want to hire you for a job, a dangerous one that pays extremely well." She pushed a data pad across the table. "Supply run to the Kepler Nebula. Medical supplies, food synthesizers, emergency shelter units." Jackson glanced at the pad, his eyebrows rising at the cargo manifest. "This is enough supplies for a small colony." "Who's the client? Does it matter? Your reputation says you don't ask unnecessary questions." "My reputation also says I'm still breathing, which means I ask the right questions." He leaned back, studying her with those tired eyes. "Why me? There are plenty of pilots who run cargo to the outer systems." Kira had been dreading this moment, but it was necessary. Everything depended on his reaction to what she was about to reveal. "Because 15 years ago, you were the pilot of the civilian transport Morning Star," she said, watching his face carefully. "You evacuated the human population from Nexari Prime when the Civil War broke out." The color drained from Jackson's face. "How do you know about that?" "Because I was there." Kira's voice remained steady despite the pain that talking about it always brought. "I was 7 years old, hiding in the spaceport with my mother, watching the evacuation ships load passengers." Jackson's hand fell away from his weapon, his expression shifting from caution to something approaching horror. "The evacuation was for humans only. Company orders we couldn't take. Couldn't take the mixed blood children," Kira finished. No. I watched you argue with your co-pilot about it. Watched you pace the loading ramp for 10 minutes, looking at all of us hybrid kids who weren't quite human enough to save." The silence stretched between them, heavy with 15-year-old guilt and pain. Around them, the cantina continued its nocturnal business, but their corner booth felt isolated from the rest of the galaxy. There were 43 of us. Kira continued, her voice soft but relentless. Children with human and Nexari parents. Too alien for the human evacuation, too human for the Nexari to accept when the war started. You know what happened to most of us? Jackson shook his head, but his expression said he could imagine. We became weapons, Kira said. The Nexari resistance found us useful. Human tactical thinking combined with Nexari sensory abilities. Perfect for infiltration and assassination. Those of us who survived the training became ghosts, moving between worlds, belonging to neither. Why are you telling me this? Jackson asked, his voice rough. Because despite everything, you were the only one who hesitated, the only one who looked at us like we were people instead of problems. Kira reached across the table, her fingers barely brushing his, and because the supply run isn't for a colony, it's for them, the survivors, the other hybrid children from Nexari Prime. She pulled up a holographic display from the data pad, showing images of a harsh, airless moon on the edge of explored space. 31 of us are still alive. We've built something like a community on Sanctuary Moon, but resources are running low. The war may have ended, but the galaxy still doesn't have a place for beings like us. Jackson stared at the images, his face cycling through emotions too complex to name. You want me to help the people I abandoned. I want you to help the children. You couldn't become adults who might survive. Kira's voice carried no accusation, only a strange kind of hope, not for absolution, not to ease your conscience, but because it's the right thing to do, and if I say no, then we continue, as we have been, stealing what we need, taking jobs that slowly kill our souls, watching our friends die one by one as the galaxy grinds us down. Kira's smile held no bitterness, only resignation. I won't force you, Jackson. I can't. But I had to ask. Jackson was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the holographic images of the moon where her people had made their desperate home. When he looked up, something had changed in his expression. The morning star, he said slowly, I dream about. That day sometimes, about the children left behind. I've spent 15 years telling myself I followed orders, did what I had to do. You did. No. Jackson said firmly, I did what was easy, what was safe, what protected my career and my conscience. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. But maybe it's not too late to do what's right. Kira felt something shift inside her chest, a loosening of tension she had carried for so long. She had forgotten it was there. The pay is real, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. We've saved up enough credits to make it worth your while. Keep your money, Jackson said. Consider it back payment on a debt I've owed for 15 years. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, hands still touching across the scarred surface of the table. Round them, the cantina continued its eternal dance of deals and deceptions. But in their corner booth, something genuine was taking root. There's something else you should know, Kira said finally. The Nexari Confederacy has put bounties on all of us, dead or alive. Taking this job means you'll be marked as well. Jackson's smile was the first genuine expression she had seen from him. Wouldn't be the first time I've had a price on my head. Besides, I'm getting tired of safe, boring cargo runs, and there's something else. Kira hesitated, then decided honesty had brought them this far. Some of the others, they remember you. They're not all as forgiving as I am. I wouldn't expect them to be. They might try to kill you. Jackson laughed, a sound with little humor but surprising warmth. Well, that definitely makes it more interesting than hauling grain to the inner colonies. Kira found herself smiling, the expression feeling strange on features more accustomed to careful neutrality. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. It's served me well so far. Jackson squeezed her hand gently. When do we leave? My ship is docked in Bay 7. We can launch as soon as you're ready. Your ship, modified Nexari scout vessel, fast, well-armed, and completely untraceable to any government database. Kira's smile turned predatory. I told you we learned to survive. They left the cantina together. moving through Meridian Port's twisting corridors toward the docking bays. Kira was acutely aware of Jackson walking beside her, of the way other beings gave them a wide berth when they noticed her hybrid features. For 15 years, she had moved through the galaxy alone, belonging nowhere, trusted by no one. Now, for the first time since that terrible day on Nexari Prime, she wasn't walking alone. "Can I ask you something?" Jackson said as they approached. "Her ship, of course, that day on Nexari Prime. Your mother, what happened to her?" Kira was quiet for a moment, memories rising like ghosts in the recycled air of the station. She was human, married a Nexari diplomat before the war started. When the evacuation began, she tried to get on the transport with me, told them I was full human. But they knew. Medical scanners don't lie. Kira's voice remained steady, but Jackson could hear the old pain beneath the words. She had a choice. Save herself or stay with her daughter. She stayed. She stayed. Died in the bombardment 3 days later, holding my hand in a shelter that wasn't nearly strong enough. Kira stopped walking, turning to Fak.